Hi everyone, welcome back today to a new lesson, which is actually a request from one of you, and it's all about articles and when you should use an, the, or nothing. And it's going to look at the basics of that, when you should use them with countable and uncountable nouns, abstract nouns, these things that cause a lot of confusion. This is actually the first in a two-part series. Next week, I will bring you a lesson also about articles, but those exceptions, those subtle rules, which can be difficult to remember. So this is the basics. And then next week, we're going to go into more detail around the rules and the exceptions, etc., that kind of thing. But before we get to the lesson, I just wanted to take a minute to reintroduce myself. My name is Jenny, and I am a British English teacher. And as we have a few new subscribers, I thought I'd answer the main question that people ask me is, where are you from? So I'm from the UK. I was born there. I grew up there. I spent the first 28 years of my life there before I decided I wanted to change. I decided I wanted to teach, and I kind of fell into teaching English. I did a teaching English certificate, and then I started teaching English online, and I brought that with me when I moved to Spain 7 years ago with my family, and I still live here. If you have any more questions, you can leave them in the comment section below. But now that that's done, let's get on with the lesson.
So, articles with countable nouns. Singular countable nouns can never be used alone. They must be used with a determiner, and articles are a type of determiner. Other types of determiner include demonstratives, such as this and that, possessives like my, your, her, his, quantifiers, and numbers. Okay? When we mention something for the first time or one unspecific thing, we use the indefinite article a or an. And remember, an is used before a vowel sound, which is why we say a unicorn, because unicorn starts with a y sound, not an sound or an oo sound. It doesn't start with a vowel sound, so we don't use an. But then we do say something like an hour, because although it's written with an H, the H is silent. Hour begins with a vowel sound, hence an hour. So it's all about pronunciation and not spelling when you decide whether you need to use a or an. I hope that's clear. A lot of people get confused with that. And so when we know what is being talked about, whether that's because there's just one of this thing or it's already been mentioned and so the listener knows what we are talking about, that is when we use the definite article the. Okay, so some examples. I met a really nice man yesterday. The man was really friendly. So here in this case, in the first sentence, it's the first time I'm mentioning this man, so I'm going to use a. In the second sentence, the person who I'm talking to already knows which man, and therefore I use the. The next example, we stayed in a lovely hotel right next to the beach. What was the name of the hotel you stayed at last year? So in the first one there, we know it's the first time that somebody's mentioning this hotel. In the second example, you've obviously already told the listener about the hotel that you stayed at last year. Therefore, they don't need to use a, they should use the, because we know which hotel we are talking about. We are being specific. We are talking about the specific hotel that you stayed at last year. Okay, just an important note before we continue. Many people get confused by abstract nouns, and that's because they are often uncountable, but sometimes they can be countable or even both. But just to refresh what an abstract noun is, an abstract noun is something that you cannot sense with the five senses. Okay, so they're intangible because you can't see them, smell them, touch them, hear them, or taste them. Okay, so these are abstract nouns. So as it says here, they are often uncountable, often, but not always. Okay, and let's look at some examples when they can be countable. So we have an idea. Okay, you can have one idea or you can have 25 ideas or a million ideas. Although it's abstract, it is still countable. Also, we have dream, several dreams. Time is an interesting one because it can be both countable and uncountable. So when time is countable, it means experiences such as like specific events or moments. For example, how many times have you been to the UK? In that case, times is actually used in the plural. It is uncountable when represented by a clock, for like the general concept of time. For example, I don't have much free time during the week. And maybe at the weekend, I have more free time than during the week. The next one is experience. So we can have several experiences, things that happen to you. Uncountably, it means knowledge or skills that you gain through life and time. For example, she doesn't have enough experience to do this job. Compare with, she had an amazing experience when she was on holiday. Yeah, so I hope you can see the difference between those. And the final one is a feeling. Let's have a look at a couple of examples so you can see some abstract countable nouns. So, and also remember, if the abstract noun is countable, it follows the same rules as concrete singular nouns. Yeah, exactly the same rules that we just looked at on the previous slide. They apply when it is an abstract countable noun. Of course, it's tricky sometimes because you don't know if it is countable or uncountable. That's something that comes with experience. But when you know it's countable, even if it's abstract, it's still going to follow the same rules. So, I had a wonderful dream last night. Yeah, this is the first time that I'm mentioning the dream. It's singular, it's countable, so I'm going to use a. And in the second example, tell him about the idea you told me about. Yeah, in this case, you're using the definite article the because they already know which idea is being spoken about. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So now let's review what we do with plural countable nouns. So these can be used with no article, which is sometimes called zero article, or the definite article the. They cannot be used with a or an. Okay, so when we talk in general, we don't use an article. Flowers make a great gift. Yeah, any flowers in general. Children are great fun. So I'm talking about all children, children in general. Okay, and then when we are being specific, we use the. The flowers you gave me lasted ages. So here I'm talking about the specific bunch of flowers that you gave me. Yeah, they lasted for ages. Why don't we take the children to the park this afternoon? So in this case, it's probably this person's children, but it doesn't really matter. The important thing is that the other person that they're talking to knows which children they are talking about. Okay, so we're talking about specific children. Moving on now to uncountable nouns and how they are used with articles. Uncountable nouns can be used with no article or the definite article the. They can also not be used with a or an. When we talk in general, we do not use an article. Okay, please place luggage in the overhead lockers before we take off. So you might hear this on a plane. Okay, and we're talking about everyone's luggage, all the luggage in general. You shouldn't give advice unless someone asks for it. In this case, we're talking about any advice in general. You shouldn't give any advice unless someone asks for some advice. When we are being specific, we use the. Please can you put the luggage in the boot? The boot is where the storage is at the back of a car. So here we know which luggage we're talking about. We're talking about our luggage, the luggage that we're planning to take with us. The advice you gave me was very useful. Specific advice. The specific advice that you gave me helped me. All right. And just one last note on this slide is that many uncountable nouns only have a singular form and take verbs in the singular. So is, has, etc. Some common examples of uncountable nouns include knowledge, advice, luggage, furniture, water, money, information, bread, and homework. And some singular uncountable nouns, confusingly, end in S and must still take a singular verb, such as news and politics, maths and physics. So they're a bit confusing because they end in S, but they're singular uncountable nouns. So we say the news is very depressing, yeah, or politics doesn't interest me. And then interestingly, we have some uncountable nouns which only have a plural form and therefore should take a plural verb. So you'll be familiar with some of these because a lot of these are everyday items like glasses. Yeah, my glasses are broken. Also, we have groceries, trousers, clothes, savings. We also have shorts and scissors. Scales. Scales, remember, are what you use to weigh things, either in the kitchen to measure how much something weighs, or in the bathroom if you're weighing yourself. And finally, something like congratulations is also an uncountable noun that is always in the plural. Okay, so that is it for the theory. I now have a little quiz to see how much of that you have remembered. So this little quiz is error recognition and correction. So we're going to look at each sentence and I want you to decide if the sentence has a mistake. And if it has a mistake, what is the correct way to say it? So the first one here is, we had the fabulous holiday in August. Is that correct? No, it's not correct because it's the first time that we're mentioning it, so we're going to use a. We had a fabulous holiday in August. And then in the next sentence, you might say, the holiday was in Spain. But because this is the first time you're mentioning it, the best way to say this is with a. The next sentence is, I heard a wonderful news. This one is also incorrect, and actually it's one of the most common mistakes that I hear. So in this case, news is uncountable. You can't use at with it. Okay, so you could say, I heard wonderful news. Perhaps more naturally, we would say, I heard some wonderful news. You remember, you can use some with uncountable nouns as well as plural countable nouns too. So, number 3, what an amazing experience you must have had. Is that one correct? Yeah, it is, because in this case, we're talking about an experience, a specific experience. This is the countable form. And so, yeah, this one is correct. I'm not interested in the politics. This one is incorrect. Again, it's quite common to hear this mistake, but it would simply be, I'm not interested in politics. Politics in general. Now, you could say a little bit more and then it would be correct to use the, I'm not interested in the politics of that country. And in that case, yes, you're being specific, so you would use the. So, the next one, the food at the restaurant was delicious. Yep, this one is correct. The specific food at the specific restaurant was delicious. Yeah, it's probably a secondary sentence in a conversation because maybe we've mentioned the restaurant before, but when we're talking about specific food at a specific restaurant, this is absolutely correct to use the definite article.
So that's it for part 1 in this 2-part series of articles. Next week, it will be a little bit more complicated around the special uses, or especially of the definite article and the exceptions when we don't use any article, when you might think we should. So that should be quite interesting, and it is quite complicated, this topic. And it just wouldn't fit in one video, which is why I have spread it out over 2 videos. But if you have any questions or doubts or requests, please leave them in the comment section below. I really love to hear from you guys and to see your comments and to interact with you that way. But thanks again for watching, and we'll speak again next week. Bye for now.